Is summer where youth ministry goes to die, or is it actually the secret sauce for the year ahead? I wish somebody had told me a long time ago that it could be amazing for the fall.
Let's be honest, between camp chaos, mission trips, and empty Wednesday nights, if you do Wednesday nights at all, summer can feel like an endless game of ministry whack a mole. But what if surviving the summer slump is less about survival and more about getting creative and building momentum for the ministry you want this fall?
I believe that we stand on the verge of a historic moment.
You ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like, and the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
I found pardon for my past, power for the present, bright prospect for the future.
If you talk to the average teenager of today, I know what it does to you.
That could have an unparalleled and unprecedented impact.
I've got a story to tell. Have you?
John, we're back, and it's summer, and it's hot, and it's crazy, and it's sweaty, and people are getting saved at camp and breaking bones at camp, and it's just everything's happening, man. Summer is nuts.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever had anybody break a bone at camp?
Oh yeah. I was at a church once where right before I had gotten there, a kid had broken his femur at camp.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's like breaking a block of concrete.
It was awful. And
what did that kid do?
All he did was jump. He just jumped, was trying to jump over a bench and fell on the bench wrong, and it broke it. Well, what was crazy is that he got there, and if this was the guy I think it was, I could be telling the story wrong, but the Navy SEAL medic that was their medic guy, which was a great guy, looked at him and said, well, I'm going to have to set it because you can slice your femoral. And he said he literally pulled it out and clicked it back in.
Oh,
but
man,
I've had concussions at camp, had a kid bite through his lips at camp.
I did. My favorite one.
What?
We were in West Virginia. We were working with the Appalachia Service Project.
Oh yeah.
And this kid, we're doing construction, and there's this kid, I can't even remember his name. Good looking kid, big kid, basketball player on the trip. Historically had struggled to listen to me and really anybody. But we're there, and there are sticks of wood with nails sticking out of them and a 5-gallon bucket that's been turned over. Oh, no. And so, as one would, you play drums, And I told this kid, I said, man, you can't stop hitting it. I said, because you're going to hit it too hard and it's going to bounce back and it's going to hit you. And he just thought I was being ridiculous. So he just absolutely whacks the top of the bucket and comes around the side, very calm, comes around the side. I'm building a handrail on a porch. And he says, Pastor John, I said, yeah, bud. He said, you were right. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I turned around to look at him because it was one of those man. And I turned around and look at him. He has a board hanging from his head. No hands. He just has a nail. He just has a nail in his temple.
You know what happened is the nerves hadn't come back yet, so he wasn't feeling the pain.
Yeah. Well, the problem is we're in the middle of Raynell, West Virginia. And if you've ever been there, man, it's an hour to a legitimate hospital. So we had to get him in a car and take him, and he couldn't take the board out of his head. So he had to drive an hour down the road. Anyway, that's one of my all-time favorites.
This was not summer, but it was a college mission trip. And I just need you to understand how bad the dynamics were. You'll appreciate this after you tell me that one. It was me. I was the staff member. I was the college and student pastor. And had been doing ministry quite a while at this point. But the way that it worked was the person that ran missions, their buddy, wanted to lead a mission trip, and since they were single and older, and it was weird. I was jointly running this trip with somebody, and that just isn't a good place to be.
Yeah.
Especially when it's somebody that always thinks they're right and they're not ever getting back to you on what you need. And so it was absolutely drove me nuts. But these were all older kids, and they had this girl named Fumi, and no joke, weird name, But Fumi was a PhD student and nearly 30 and about my age at the time. And I was 30, 31. And I think, but anyway, the point was just straight out of China, barely spoke English. And we were cleaning up this house. It was like a halfway house for women getting out of abuse. And it was their step. They could stay there as long as they need to. And then step out. It was great ministry. but we were cleaning off. I mean, their roof was covered in Florida. It was hot and sweaty, but I like doing construction trips because it's just, I enjoy that work. And we were cutting big limbs and getting them off of this roof, and it was slick, so it was only me and two other guys on this roof that were allowed to be up there. And there were kumquats on this tree. I'd never seen a kumquat in my life. And we're cutting this thing, and these kumquats are falling. Apparently, in the region that Fumi is from, kumquats are a delicacy. And how could we terrible Americans waste a kumquat? And I'm like, well, I'll tell you how we can waste it. It's in stinking Florida growing wild above a house, and we got standards, so I ain't doing that. And so we're cutting it. Well, here's what happens. John, these are big. These are 10-foot limbs. They're this thick. And and we're sliding them off the roof. And every time we go, hey, watch out below. Is anybody below? And I hear, they'll go, no, you're clear. And so when they said you're clear, I start sliding one down the roof. And Fumi comes running and goes, no, and jumps in to grab kumquats. And this 8 to 10 foot limb that's that thick hit her in the face and Fumi down. She just bonk, and she dropped like a sack of potatoes.
I bet she did.
I just went, dear God, I've killed Fumi. And I went down and Fumi, and we didn't know. And so she just biffs it and hits the ground, and I went, oh no. And I went over there, and everybody else goes, and I start walking over, and then the guy named Turnley, who's a contractor, comes out and he goes, I know that you're the pastor, but I'm calling it stop on all this. And I said, fine with that. I went over to the lady that was supposed to be running this with me, who was in charge, because I said, you need to be in charge of this person. She doesn't speak good English. I looked at her and I said, get her to a hospital. Because she got up, she was like, and she had a kumquat permanently on her face at that point. I mean, it was a goose egg. I said, get her to the hospital, get it taken care of, and then come back here. I said, cannot do this anymore. You got to take control of the people that you got to take control of. And she's like, okay. And she starts going through it. And I just looked at the guy and I said, dude, I don't know what to say. I said, other than everybody else here gets it, but the PhD student. And he went, what just happened? I said, I think we might have killed her. Anyway, turns out she was fine. May have had a concussion, but decided she didn't want to sit in the urgent care long enough. And I was like, well, that's on you. And so anyway, that was the day that I almost killed Fumi and had no idea. Because literally, are we clear? We're clear, Ian. Let go.
Yeah. One more thing I'll say.
Yeah.
We had a construction trip. We went down to New Orleans, and we're in St. Robert's Parish or something like that, or some parish. So we're down there, and we're doing land clearing for a church. They were still kind of coming back from Katrina, and there was a house next to their church they wanted, and so we're clearing it all out. And we had this guy named Tanner Langford on the trip, and God rest his soul, he ended up passing away, not from this, but he was kind of like the outdoorsman guy, like he wore camo just because it was his favorite piece of clothing, and that's just kind of what he did. But he was and bragged about his knowledge of all things. Clearly his knowledge fell short of like, what does poison sumac look like?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
He didn't know poison sumac, poison oak, poison ivy. He like got all up in it, and we were kind of waiting, and he was like, "No, guys, it's fine." And I said, "Guys, I love and appreciate Tanner, but we're a long way from your mom and dad. I don't trust what that is, so let's just hold off because it's suspicious to me." And he just gets all up in it. He just starts ripping it down and pulling it down. When I tell you, if you've ever seen the movie Hitch, after he eats sushi, I've never seen someone's body react the way that Tanner's body reacted, to where he could not see out of his eyes, Ian. His cheeks and his forehead had met one another, and he was oozing out of his face and and then I'm like, Tanner, after you get back from the urgent care.
Was he like, no, it's fine, keep going?
Yeah. I was like, you're going to urgent care. After you get back, you just need to go and you just need to lay down. We're staying in the church. The guys are in the sanctuary. So I get in the sanctuary, and this joker has decided he's going to lay on my bed, not his own bed.
Of course not. Why would you do that?
Yeah. And so I had to like take all my stuff and just get rid of it. So I was not a happy camper, but yeah. So those are kind of some summer fail stories, but let's kind of get on track here. What do you think the real reason is summer feels so chaotic for student pastors?
I think there's a phrase that I heard a lot over the last 20 years. I still hear it. I heard it a lot when I was doing was full-time student ministry, and that's all that I did. So I wasn't doing SSM and teaching pastor. Like I did, that's all I did. And I remember the pastor would always go. It was funny because he spent as much time as he wanted. Like he worked a lot, but I think he worked a lot because he didn't like his wife. But everybody else could take a break that was up in the upper echelons, but he'd go, guys, never slows down. Summer just gets busier. And it was like, it was expected that the time of year where everything drops 30% at least in your attendance, 30% drop, that we were supposed to thrive and just do a bunch of garbage because it's like we were compensating for a drop. And I think I think that so often summer feels chaotic because we think in a non-spiritual way we're supposed to be all things to all people and what they do, and we're not supposed to do that. It's kind of like the summer slump. How do you survive the slump? We want you to thrive. I don't think it's a slump. I think that we have just in our churches and in the church in general, we have fallen for this idea that it's always go go go, and if it's not go go go, the only rhythm is go. The only rhythm is put down. And so, and summer's not that kind of a time. In fact, it's a really beautiful time because to everything turn, a mentality that summer is a time that we can breathe, that we do have some events going on, but I don't even think church people are terrible for not being there because that 30% rotates. I mean, that's like everybody, that's the time when people go on vacation. It's okay to miss church a few weeks a year and to go on a vacation and to do stuff. And so you're just going to see that. But I think that we have built everything around numbers and everything around go, that even if, and I'll tell you this, man, I'm going to be vulnerable. As a guy who's had between 250 and 500 kids, that he's grown student ministries up to that big, almost every church, I was not a numbers guy. I did really healthy and good ministry. I was thankful that God allowed me to do that. And I was never somebody that said numbers have my heart. But then when I got into a church plant situation, which is where I'm at now, and I've got 15 or 20 kids, it took several years for me to identify what was really wrong because I was frustrated and tense because numbers had my heart. Even though I didn't mean for it, I didn't want it, and word they didn't. And I think that still drives how we view summer, whether we think it does or not.
Oh, that's 100%. That's 100%. The thing that's frustrating to me about summer is events for events' sake.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like the intentionality goes out the window during the summer, and we just throw spaghetti at the wall and see if something.
Yeah, and you just throw it at the wall, yeah. And it's been hard. I think it's been really hard this year for me. It's been really hard this year for me for a lot of reasons. But it's also like we're just busy, man. We're just busy. There's just a lot of stuff going on and a lot of things happening. And, and in the midst of all this too, like you got to make time for the most important people in your life, which is your family.
That's right.
And I think so many guys, like, unfortunately, guys and girls that are doing student ministry, they will, during the summer, like their families just don't expect to see them. Like I had a conversation with a couple of youth pastors last week at a camp, and they just were talking like, yeah, their spouse just resigns to they're going to be without them for the summer. And I think that's a really unhealthy thing. Number one, I understand if your spouse can't be with you at all the stuff. I get that. My spouse can't be with me at all the stuff. Your family shouldn't just expect for you not to be present for a season.
Yeah, I think if it's like a short, like maybe let's say like, hey, camp season for the 3 weeks.
Yeah, like you're going away for a week, but I'm talking like if you're doing multiple weeks for a couple months in the summer, and your family's just resigned to during the time where they should be relaxing and enjoying their family, you're busy and not enjoying your family. There's something wrong with that, and you gotta get that under control before that takes control of you.
I would almost say, I mean, let's think about this for a minute. Like, I think that you should thrive in the summer. You shouldn't just survive. You shouldn't just make it through. It should be a moment, and I think we've got to start. The biggest thing about surviving the slump, I think, has got to be, and I get it, and I want to give you two things. I want us to realistically, boots on the ground, not senior pastor that we may feel pressure from, or not other ministers or parents, but just you. Need to know that summer is a recurring season that is always going to come. It's like Sunday. It's always going to come back around. It's always going to be summer again. And so summer is a rhythm. It's not static. Two, I think that when it comes to satisfying needs in people, when we have a right outlook like that, I think the phrase we need to stick with is smarter, not harder. And that's why I don't think, if you do Wednesday nights during the summer, I think that you should. If you don't do it, that's great. Like, I think you're great either way. You make that decision, be, like Paul would say, be convinced in your own heart do what your people need. I would tell you this. I don't think that there are very many reasons you should be outside of a regular ministry day should be out late on a summer. And unless you have one or two events or something like that. And so I'd give you a couple of examples. One, Aaron Finley, one of our guys that we love in our cohorts, he and I were talking the other day. They're moving away because we're all about events, or we're all about preaching the next thing, but we don't do we do a lot of information. We don't do a lot of transformation of community. So they're calling it Summer Vibes Nights, and they're just doing Wednesday nights where everybody comes and hangs out for a little bit longer than normal because it's lighter outside, and they hang out and just spend time. And that is a low pressure, high yield kind of a thing. That's smarter. It's not harder. And I don't hear him. I'm not presuming to know his ministry, but he's not doing 3 extra gatherings a week. I think that if you are doing extra things in the summer, do them during regular work hours. Why? Because your kids are off, and parents need a break too. So, like, you do a great book club every couple year, every 2 years, you rotate through and you do summer book clubs where you meet in the mornings. I love doing things, meeting out for lunches, and I think that every group is very different. But I don't think that means just because.
And sometimes you're going to have 10 kids, and sometimes you're going to have 1.
Yeah, and you got to be okay with that. But I just think this mentality of, because you need to help. Here's the win: the smarter, not harder. Parents view you as a help when you're doing something during the day when they're at work. They view it as a burden when they're doing something after hours, when they should all be home together. Don't cut into the family time that we all believe we need.
Unless, caveat, unless it is during a typical time in which your family, the rhythm. Yeah, so like we'll do a couple movie nights in the summer, and we do those on Wednesday nights because the families are in their typical rhythm. They just assume Wednesday nights are going to be gone anyway. So we'll do a movie night with the caveat, like when Superman comes out, it's coming out on a Friday. We're going to go on Friday. And fun fact, Superman used our church as a recording location.
That's a good story.
So that's why we're excited about that.
I'm just excited because I think Marvel's kind of 80% trash now. So
Fantastic Four is going to help with that, and we've just severely dated this episode, but that's okay. It's okay.
I'll say this. Yeah, well, it may not age well for you. I'm not taking any chances on it. I just hope that.
I think both are going to be great. I'm taking it. I'm putting it out there in the world.
Put it out there, send it right on back. But I would just say, if it's not a regular ministry night, and here's where I think the win is there. I think that you don't back off of working your office hours during the summer. I don't think that you back off of doing Wednesdays unless that's part of what y'all do. I do think, though, you don't add the pressure and you back off from saying, I got to do something all these different nights. It should be a moment that you stay as engaged with your parents as they can be. And I will say this, and this may not be a great thing to say. I don't want you to take it wrong. I think you can be 30% less engaged while people are 30% absent. And here's why I think that's important. Roll that into beyond events and leveraging downtime, which is our next section. I think you should take that 30% kind of margin that you have, because people are not in and out all the time. They're not asking more things of you. They're not expecting. They're actually kind of okay that there's not more events, I would imagine. You can take that 30% during your office hours and you can roll that in to preparing for the fall. And that's what I would tell you.
Yeah, I don't take that wrong because I think it's right.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I don't want the guy that goes, so you mean I can play video games in my office 30% of the day? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
no. If redeem the time, transition the time to use it for something productive. Unfortunately, you and I know the guys that in the summertime you can find them in their spare bedroom playing Minecraft or whatever the game is that these guys are playing now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
play cool games. By the way, if I ever play video games, I play them randomly, and I'll play like Assassin's Creed, and it's not cool because I'm old.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, if I'm playing, I'm playing NCAA. That's pretty much it.
So let me tell you this. Here's some ways we can slow weeks down and do deeper discipleship. We talked about a couple of them. I would tell you nights that are centered around community. That's going to be the biggest one. So if you say, and listen, I'm just going to tell you, I believe in the transforming power of God's word. I also believe in being obedient to it. And it tells us to be in community, to share life with one another. And I don't think the church as a whole does a good job of healthy We do a good job of pretentious relationships. We don't do a good job of just fun and joy. So we tend to go one way or the other. And so I think it's great. Do summer vibe nights, do volleyball nights on Wednesdays, do things, even if you do a much shorter biblical lesson and more of a devotional. And then you go, guys, we're going to hang out and play some games and have fun. Do those things. Because I think those are ways to go deeper. I also think, this is a side note, but one of the things I did for camp this year is at the end of summer at student camp, I interviewed, just gave four or five little questions, like, what was your favorite part of camp? What's your favorite part of this? What's one thing you wish you don't want to forget? What's one thing you don't want to remember about camp? And just funny and serious things all together. And I was able to put that together into a powerful beginning of a video for me. I think that when you think ahead towards fall and towards building it up, think about some fun things like that where you can just interview your kids short, and then you can edit those together later. Because on summers, you're usually going to have your core kids. And so I think you can really spend the time doing that. I think you can do some deeper Bible studies if you want to during work hours on those days. But John, what are some ways that you can use slower weeks for deeper connection? Is there anything I can add to that?
No, I think that's good, man. I think when we have the slower weeks in our summer. So like, for instance, the month of June for me, the first week is VBS. The second week I have quote unquote off. And we have a church event at the end of that week where we all go to the Braves game or something. And then the third week we have a camp. The fourth week we have a camp. And then we're into July. And so I have 1 week in the whole month of June where my life's not chaotic. And so what I like to do in those weeks is I like to be really intentional with my leaders. And so I'll reach out to a couple of my leaders and try to get coffee with them on that week, try to do some check-ins and stuff like that. And if you're one of my leaders listening right now and you're like, well, you didn't call me, I apologize. I did call someone, but it wasn't you. But yeah, I do. I try to be intentional on the time that I have slowed down, not to make it busy work, but to make it like deep work where you're doing some of the soul check.
I mean, summer offers you most of the time, even people that are working full-time jobs, a lot of times, like your leader volunteers, can cut away for a little bit for an extra coffee or an extra lunch.
Yeah. And I'll try to schedule people on the same day. Yeah. So I'll just go and be in one place and say, hey, I'm going to meet with you, and they don't know that I'm time blocking them, but I'll just have a day where I just go and then I give myself like 30 minutes for a meeting to run over and transition. Yep. And then I'll meet with the next person and they'll just come meet.
I also think along with that, one of the things that we don't think is you can do excellent campus ministry during the summer and there's two ways for that. One of them, if you're struggling to get on the campus, even if you're not struggling, but you want to make sure I would make sure that I am one. I used to take watermelon to the football players, and they used to love that I would take a machete and a giant cooler and I'd cut it up for them there and we'd eat. So take, your football teams, that's happening during the morning, during the day. Your band camps, they love ice pops, man. They can't get all messy with the watermelon, but they can, doing ice pops in a freezer, that stuff. But then also by the way, I get real mad sometimes about things that you wouldn't think I'd get mad about. But one of the things I got really angry about was when I heard a student pastor tell me how excited he was to do all this campus ministry and he was going to do all this great stuff. And he had been there for a year. And I said, great. Do you know the principal? How well do you know the principal? Well, I haven't talked with him yet.
You've been there a year?
Plan on doing this another year? Like, what is wrong with you? Don't tell me all the stuff that you're going to do and you haven't been building a relationship to do it. There are very few principals in this world that will just allow you to come in and they don't know you and go, hey,
yep,
can I do all this stuff? So here's what I'm going to tell you. Summer's a great time because your teachers are working and they are, like, your administrators are working. Call your principal and say, hey, I'd love to buy you lunch. Can we go out and I'd love to connect with you. Hey, what can I do for you this fall? How can we serve you? But man, there is such a huge campus ministry moment that you could build a relationship over the summer, going to a couple lunches and paying for their lunch, that you could go do things later on. So I would just tell you, man, those are the things that, like, that during the school year, there ain't a principal out there that will take a break for lunch for you. They can't.
Yeah.
They can absolutely do it during that. So I think there's great things you can do. I also think this one, I told you earlier, we were telling you about regular work hours, but I do think that when you have lighter days, cut off an hour early if you can. Take a break, rest, go date your wife, go read the things that you don't usually get to read, like invest in you.
Mm-hmm. Or date your husband if you're a lady listening.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Date your husband, or even if he's not your husband yet, just date your boyfriend. Maybe go find somebody to date, right? I don't know.
Maybe. Farmers only. It's not a thing anymore.
No, but Christian Mingle still is. Or
hey.
Mingle is something. But I think you can do that. But here's, I think, the most important one, John, and we're getting to this. In your fall, during this summer. That,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's really what's really fun is when we're talking to students or talking to parents or talking to leaders, and they're like, you're anticipating the fall and you're kind of building your fall up, and like they'll ask my leaders will ask me, or my students will ask me like, hey, where are we going in the fall? Hey, where are we going? And I'm like, let me tell you where we're going. I'm really excited about this. We're going to do a whole semester on how to read and understand the Bible, and it's a big deal because people don't know how to read and understand their Bible. And so we're going to get real basic, and we're going to teach you every single week how to read and understand. And every single one of them is like, oh man, yeah, I do struggle with that. I do. And golden circle that bad boy. Would you really like to be able to read and understand the Bible when you open it up?
Summer is your moment, is your long rhythm to hype fall up.
Yeah,
like
do it.
It's your moment.
And notice you're not hyping up fall retreat. You're not hyping up all that stuff because they're in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
And so they're in the middle of the hype stuff. Hype them up about the stuff that you're being like, the stuff that you are strategic and the stuff that you're passionate about is going to be the things you sell anyway, the things that you're trying to build up. Yep. So for me, like what we teach on Wednesday and Sundays are like the things that are of my greatest joy and excitement. So those are the things I'm pushing down the road. But I think that that's a big thing. But I've cut you off like 3 times now, so I'm gonna turn it back to you.
I talk a lot. I wish we were better at dialoguing, but darn it, we're just so good at talking back and forth. I would tell you, if you're looking at like developing your leaders, I think that you do exactly what John's saying. You get a plan for the fall. We should be planning for the fall, saying, how am I going to develop leaders consistently? What are the sermon series I'm going to preach? And then putting the work necessary to that, just so that we get beyond. I mean, sometimes it's just good to get it on paper. But in order to do that, that's a big deal for us. Like you should be, for us, I know I'm going to date it, but it's July 1. This is prime time to do that. I think with your small groups, some guys say, well, should I even have small groups? Yeah, I think a 30% dip still means that you prepare your leaders for this. Hey, it's not going to be a lot of people, but you get the moment to go deeper and to have fun and hang out. Like this is the time when you bring donuts to class if you want, or biscuits and gravy. We're going to do something crazy. But when all of that happens, I would just tell you, man, it's the laws of real estate are very similar to the laws of summer leadership development. Recruit, recruit, recruit. Like this is your prime time to be calling parents, hanging out, going to dinner with parents, like at their house. Like just, hey, let's go grab dinners with families. Like, let's go have fun. And then you're saying, hey, I really need some help this fall. This is a natural rhythmic break in the year for you. And I'll tell you, this is a little bit late for this, but even summer camps, D-Nows, all of those things throughout the year, those are moments and first steps to helping get people involved to volunteer long term. But man, This is the moment you are scoping out parents and going, you haven't done anything in a while and you'd be good at it. So I'm going to go, and you're going to go find those people, have a list, check it twice, find out who's lazy and not doing anything. Like you just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling you, recruit. And so I guess that's kind of the end too of this section. But I do want to tell y'all, if you're going to jump behind the wall with us, if you want to become members, you may or may not have heard our one of our last podcasts, but we are now officially partners with Shaping Student Ministry and YPC are now together and family. And so here's what I want you to do.
And YPC is?
Youth Pastor Central.
Youth Pastor Central.
We love Chris Allen and the guys over there. And man, big platform. You may be watching this podcast from there. But here's what I want you to tell you to do. We're going to talk about some really cool stuff behind the wall, some really practical things. We're also going to offer you a summer survival resource, which is a planning resource for the fall. We're going to offer some prep and planning, some calendar. We're going to have some calendar. What am I talking about here? Templates. So that you can easily build a calendar fall template for parents that looks good and you can take credit for it. So that being said, we want you to jump into this next one. If they got a link below, if you click on it, you'll be able to sign up, get 2 weeks free. And man, for $27 a month, years worth of incredible curriculum, wonderful games. You have amazing guys. I signed up a guy the other day that said, I know you got great games and I need them. All the way to tools and everything that we offer. It's right there. It's inexpensive. And it is absolutely going to transform your ministry. So click below, check it out.
That sounds great. Well, we'll see you on the other side of the wall.
Done.